Oh, it's payday. It's payday. Payday! So excited. My God, it's felt like it's January the 75th for about the past 2 weeks. Been living off rice, baked beans on toast, pasta, crap out of the freezer that I need to get rid of. Oh, am I going to celebrate today? Oh, am I going to celebrate by doing a payday steak sandwich? What do I mean by payday steak sandwich? Well, okay, I've got a load of bourgeois stuff over there, nice bread, some truffle mayo, some nice tomatoes and all sorts of fancy stuff. And I've got this. Look at this. I'm just going to take it off its plate. Look at that. Right, look at that. Look at that piece of ribeye. Right, well, it's not just a piece. That's a huge piece. 20 quid. That was, well, just over 20 quid. I don't care. I don't care. It's going to be nice. Now, this isn't a recipe as such. I've not made this before. I'm just going to kind of wing it and just use my creativity because, you know, why not? You know, a lot of my recipes are kind of, you know, developed and I test them out a lot and make sure that they're just right. And that's important. But you know what? Sometimes it's really good to just kind of wing it in the kitchen because it helps you with your creativity. It makes you think more and kind of, it just helps you become a better cook. Well, that's my excuse anyway, and I'm sticking to it. Right, so let's get on with it. I think the first thing I want to do is roast off some peppers. I've got some really nice sweet little mini peppers and I want to kind of go down the salsa vibe. So I think by roasting them off, that's a good start. Ow. Let's do that. Right, so what I've got here then are some sweet little baby peppers. I think they're going to be really nice roasted. Now, this is going to look like a sponsorship from Marks and Spencer's because a lot of the stuff I've got is from there. Okay, the steak came from the butcher, but you know, it's not a sponsorship, it's just Marks and Spencer's, they just do some nice stuff. So that's why I've got it. So if you want to send the check, Marks and Spencer's, then please do. Look at them, nice little tiny, little mini red peppers. And all I'm going to do with those is just whack them in a tray, just like that. Simple. Got my oven whacked up to its highest temperature. I'm just going to drizzle those with some olive oil, some black pepper, and of course a pinch of salt. Going to mix those up and I'm just going to whack them in the oven. And what I'll do is I'll roast those for about 10 minutes, nice and hot, so you get nice caramelised bits on the outside, nice and roasted, because I think that'll be really nice in the salsa. Oh, what next? What next? Well, I think what we'll do now is chop up a load of the other stuff to make the salsa. Right, let's make a bit of salsa. So, first thing I'm going to do, so I've got some little Santini tomatoes here, and I'm just going to cut these up into small pieces. And you can use whatever tomato you like, I suppose. But I find these sort of small little cherry type tomatoes, they're just nice and sweet. So you've got our little pile here, we're just going to run through it. You don't want it to be too chunky, but you do want a bit of texture. Okay, there we go, that'll do. Get that into a bowl. What next? I think some shallot. Now you can use red onion or just normal onion, but I find that shallot is sweeter. It's got a milder flavour, it's not going to be as harsh. So I think probably one large banana shallot will do, and peel it. And again, all I'm going to do with these is just cut them in half and then just finely chop them into little chunks. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just kind of crumble that into the salsa. Right, the next thing I want to add is some greenery, some herbage to our salsa. So I'm going to take a nice bit of coriander, and again I'm just going to use a nice handful. And this is what I do most of the time, guys, when I'm not making a video and I'm just cooking for myself. This is how I do things, you know. I don't tend to stick to a strict recipe, obviously unless it's one of my own, like a curry or something. But if I'm making something like this, I'll just kind of follow my heart, and I think you guys should do that too. I'm not saying you should just wing it with a 20 quid steak, but what I'm saying there is go with feeling, you know, use your gut instinct, what you think will work and what you think won't. Okay, let's get that into our salsa. Also with some parsley, And you can put all sorts of herbs in here, you know, you don't have to just use coriander and parsley, you can use dill, tarragon, basil even, whatever you feel like. Okay, get that in. Right, okay, so we've got our herbs in there, and you kind of mix it up. You can see it's very dry at the minute, and I'm looking at that now, and I know I want some more tomato in there. I think there's just not quite enough, but that's the beauty of this, right? Just as you go along, just experiment, taste it. If you want more of something, add it in. So what I'm going to do first though is add some chilli. We use this smaller one here. Cut it in half. I'm going to scrape out the seeds again because I don't want that aggressive sort of heat. And I'm going to scrape out the membrane because that's where most of the heat is. Now I have shown this tip before, but I'm going to show it again. One of the best ways to test how hot a chilli is before you put it in something is to take your little finger, just rub it on the inside of the chilli and then taste it. And that's quite hot, but it's not super hot. So I can kind of gauge how much I want. So all I'm going to do with this is just cut it into strips and then just dice it quite small. Okay, there we go. Whack those in. And what I'm going to do is just cut up a few more tomatoes because I know it needs a bit more. So I'm going to get through these and I'll see you in a second. Right, so I've got my salsa, it's starting to come along now. I think I've got quite a good ratio for what I like anyway, but it does need some garlic. And I'm going to use 2 cloves, I think. Peel it, you know the drill. This garlic is organic as well, right, because there's no expense spared. And what I'm going to do is grate this into the salsa, because I don't want kind of chunky bits. And it gives like a really concentrated garlic flavour as well. Just kind of really absorbs into the salsa. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just grate the frickin' garlic in. Give that a mix up. I'm just going to leave that to one side because I think our peppers are done. Let's have a look. Woo. It's hot. It burnt my face off. Right, now these are done. You can see they've got nice char marks on them. That's what you want. But if I try and chop these up now and put them in that salsa, I'm going to burn myself. So I'm going to need to leave them to cool for a bit. And once they're cool, I'm going to cut them open, just remove the seeds, chop them up, and stick them in that salsa.
2,000 years later.
And I'm just going to chop it up. Just like that. Look at that. Easy as pie. Last one. Now what these peppers are going to do is kind of give it a smokiness. Alright, I'm not talking about a 70-a-day smoker's lung kind of smokiness. I'm talking about a nice barbecue-y smokiness. So that's what it kind of does. Here we go. So here we have the beginnings of our amazing salsa. I've spent quite a lot of time talking about this salsa, but listen, it's going to be good. Now what we need to do now is to add some olive oil. 4 tablespoons to start with. You don't want it swimming in olive oil, but you want enough to kind of bind it together. Okay, that's looking okay so far. What it does need is some acid. Now you can use vinegar, but I'm going to use some lemon. And ideally, ratio-wise, you want kind of, for 3 parts olive oil, you want 1 part citrus. So, just going to go in with about half a lemon. Definitely need some more olive oil. And I'm going to hit it with some salt and pepper. Little pinch of salt. Let's give it a quick taste. And that's just going to get better. The longer we leave it, the more those flavours are going to marry together. So that's done now, that's finished. I'm going to put that to one side, whilst we crack on and cook the steak. Okay, right, so we've got our wonderful looking steak here. So what I'm going to do is get our pan onto really high heat. Now it's imperative that your steak is at room temperature. If it's not, it's going to mess with the cooking time. So just make sure it's at room temperature. And I'm going to coat this first with some olive oil. Don't put the oil straight in the pan because you can end up with far too much smoke. And just rub that all over your steak, each side. Now what I'm going to do is season both sides with salt and pepper. So I'm going to go with loads of pepper, and again, be really generous with that pepper. And a good pinch of salt. I know it looks like a lot of salt, but trust me, it's going to be fine. Flip that over and do the same the other side. Right, so that pan is nice and hot, so let's get that steak in. Should hear it sizzle. Yes. Now there are plenty of ways to cook a steak. I've done videos on this before, but I've recently learned that the best way to get your steak perfect is use a probe. Like honestly, this thing here was like £3. You stick it in the meat, and once it gets to a certain temperature, you know it's done. Now I like my steak medium rare, so I need to cook this to about 50 to 55 degrees Celsius to get it perfect. But again, you cook it to how you like it. But I'm going to tend to this because the flipping kitchen is filling up with smoke, as you can see. So come back in a bit, all right? I'll cut to some B-roll. So this steak is probably about 90% there. So what I'm going to do is add a nice big chunk of butter. So what we're going to do is baste it. Next, some garlic cloves. Got 3 here, and all I'm going to do is just take the side of a knife, crack it. Not going to peel them. Okay. Chuck those in, and also some sprigs of thyme. Just get a bunch of it and just whack it in. What I'm going to do is just melt that butter and baste it, okay? Because you want all that garlicky flavour, that thyme, that butter to seep in to that steak. So what I'm going to do is baste this for about another 5 minutes, okay? I've used my probe, make sure that it's the right temperature, and then we need to take it off to rest. That's important, really important. Right, so that steak is done. Now it's resting over there, and you're just going to need to leave it alone. Don't touch it, don't poke it, don't stick a knife in it or a fork, just leave it alone for a good 10 minutes. And whilst that's doing that, we can get on and prepare the ciabatta. And what we're going to do is just slice this lengthways, just with a bread knife. Just open it up like that. And you can see it's got a lovely, wonderful open texture, and I think that's going to be really great, because what it's going to do is soak up all those sort of steak juices and all that butter and garlic that we've left it resting in. I'm just going to spread some butter just over the ciabatta. Oh God, this was supposed to be at room temperature, but for some reason it's cooled down, even though I've got the heating on. It's probably because I've got the back door open, it's sort of chilled down, but never mind, it doesn't matter. So we've got some butter on there. Now what I need to do now is get the grill on and toast these off.
A few moments later.
Look at that. Beautifully toasted. That's our ciabatta's done. So what I'm going to do now is pop these to one side whilst we slice up the steak. Here is our steak, sufficiently rested. Now all this thyme and garlic's kind of done its job, so what I'm going to do is just take that off. What we do need are all these juices. I'm not going to let any of those go to waste. I'm just going to take that steak off for a second, and all those juices are going to go into our salsa. Okay, so the only thing left to do now is to slice this, ready for our sandwich. Now some of the end pieces might be a little bit overcooked because obviously they were thinner, but as we get to the middle, it should be a lot more pink. Actually just ever so slightly overcooked for my liking. I think that's probably down to the fact of the filming. You know, I was kind of running around changing the camera and stuff. But you get the idea, you get the idea. It's still going to be very tasty. This is probably more medium. Right, so got a toasted ciabatta here. And the first thing I'm going to lay down is some of this stuff. It's a truffle mayonnaise. Now you could use regular mayonnaise, but because this is a payday steak sandwich, I'm using truffle mayo. And the next thing I'm going to lay down is the steak. Just get that on there. Be really generous. Don't be stingy, all right? It's a payday steak sandwich. Next thing is our amazing salsa. Now I've made quite a bit here, so there's going to be some left over, but I say it's great. With kind of grilled fish, roasted vegetables. Just whack some of this, some courgettes, some squashes like pumpkin, butternut squash, tomatoes, all that kind of stuff. Roast it off in the oven. Honestly, great with pasta. Yeah, there's so much you can do with it. So don't be worried if there's loads left over. It's just so good. And then just because I can, I'm going to put some more of that truffle mayo on the top. Not too much this time. I just want a thin layer just to kind of help it along. Now, just whack the top on. Right, let's cut this thing in half. Oh, I'm so excited. There we go. Look at that. Oh. So there we have it, a steak sandwich. So I suppose the only thing left to do now is to tuck in. Let's dig into this puppy. Oh, it's quite weighty. There we go. See the steak? Got that truffle mayo, that salsa in there. It's going to be delicious. I just know it. Let's dive in. Oh, bit fell out. Oh my God. I feel a bit speechless. For something I just kind of knocked up and not really put a lot of thought into, it's really, really good. Oh, that truffle mayo is fantastic. It really adds a bit of richness to it. And the salsa, again, just kind of cuts through everything. And then you've got that lovely juicy steak. Yeah, it was slightly overcooked, not too much. Guys, that was brilliant. Really, really nice. Well, there we have it. That's my payday steak sandwich. Just a bit of fun, just something to kind of knock up. But what it's really about is kind of using your creativity. Yes, recipes are great. You know, kind of give you a nice set of rules to follow if you're a real novice cook. But once you've kind of made those recipes, switch it out a bit. Use what you've learned to create something yourself. Use your creativity to make something delicious. Or not delicious. Depends how it goes really, doesn't it? But honestly guys, it doesn't matter, it's just dinner. You've got to take it down the road. If it goes wrong, learn for next time. But anyway guys, my battery is running low, so I'm going to have to cut it off here. Thanks again for watching. If you liked it, please stick a like down below, leave a comment, share it far and wide across your social media platforms. And as always, at the end of this, you'll see some links to some other videos. And if you want to subscribe, my face will be on there as well. But thanks again for watching, and I'll see your lovely faces in the next video, and bye for now.